Hmm. All right. Well, good morning. It's now 11:30. I'm going to go ahead and kick off our pre-commission agenda. I just want to say thanks to our ACG team who hosted a polling location here at our headquarters. Thanks for making sure that that was secure and folks had access to the polls. Super important. And I think that's all I have for today. Any housekeeping items or questions on the agenda? Commissioner McKinney.
Madam President, I would like to request that item 3 on the consent agenda be placed on the regular agenda so that we can discuss it briefly. And then I do have some questions regarding item number 5 on the consent agenda that hopefully the director can address for us.
Okay, so folks, when we make a motion, let's move item number 3 onto the regular agenda. We'll place that as the first item on the regular agenda. Okay, Commissioner McKinney, go ahead and ask your questions.
Yes, Director, item number 5 on the consent agenda is the traffic control services contract. And I just wanted to clarify a few things. The staff report indicated, well, of course, the contract amount is indicated will not exceed 3.375 million. But the staff report, first of all, it said that this item, it's eligible to be a, that it's essentially the same unit cost as last year, and we have 525,000 budgeted. And so those numbers are a little bit far apart. I'm wondering if you can help me understand why.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President, Commissioner McKinney. The dollar figure that we have in there is based on all work that we could potentially be doing in the year where we may need services. We rarely will use up to that level, but that's what their bids are based off of. And so they give us bids with the unit cost, and that's how we're able to compare that. Historically, we've spent anywhere between 300,000 in a year to 200 or to 2 million in a year. We just base that we put in an initial budget and then we adjust as we get more information throughout the year of when we're going to need these services. But they do provide the traffic control for our chip seal program and for any of the maintenance activities we do in the right of way.
So the budget amount is based on how much we actually spent last year.
That's in that ballpark.
Okay.
And we adjust throughout the year. So it's probably lower than we'll probably spend, but we'll be able to adjust through the year and work within our budget to make those adjustments.
So the contract amount then is saying not to exceed 3.375 million, but we're anticipating that if this next year's expenses are the same as the previous year, or around $500,000, but it's adjustable depending upon
adjust through the budget process. Correct.
Okay. What's our average kind of in that category? Do we have any idea of where that number stands year to year?
So, Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, looking over the last 4 or 5 years, which should obviously exclude 2020, but looking over the last number of years, we've been around probably $1 million on average.
Okay, so last year's number then was quite a bit below average, and yet we chose that number to budget?
No, sorry, Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, last year's number was actually higher. Last year was the lower number I mentioned was actually closer to was the COVID year. So since then we've had numbers 752,000 in 21, 621,000 in 22, 1 million in 23, and 2 million in 24. So we set the budget and then adjust throughout the year as we develop. For instance, right now we're still finalizing the map for the chip seal program for next year. So we don't have the exact details of what we're going to require. As that gets clearer, we'll adjust the budget to match the numbers that we'll actually need.
Okay, so it sounds like then that we set the budget number kind of at the low end And we're
Correct.
anticipating it going up, so we're gonna have to make budget adjustments. And that's what we're expecting.
Correct.
Okay.
Commissioner Goldthorpe?
Yes, Ryan, along the lines of chip seal, you say we're finishing up certain things about next year's chip seal. When are we as a commission going to hear about our plans to cure the deficit as far as percentages of work that we would like to get done that we haven't gotten done the last 2 years?
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, I want to say it's your next meeting. We will be beginning, we'll kick off the process of our review of our preventative maintenance program and how we're going to rectify it.
Cool, thanks.
Any other questions on the agenda? All right, Director Head.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President, Commission. First and foremost, congratulations to you, President Pickering and Commissioner McKinney, as well as Commissioner-elect Nilsson, for your successful elections. So we're always happy to have that season behind us. I'm sure you are too. We're excited today to share a few different things and that are going on here at the Highway District. Some exciting things that we want to share with you. We also will have a brief as part of this director's report on our winter ops, kicking off that effort for this year. But first, we have to start with a happy birthday for the great Commissioner Hanson. We do have strawberry rhubarb pie for you, sir, during the break, and we're very excited to be able to celebrate with you. Yesterday was the official day. What a day to have it.
I'll be celebrating in the future. So that's the thing about birthdays. You don't want them to come and they just do.
Well, that's an old picture too, isn't it?
Uh,
You look so young. It's so nice.
Yeah.
This last week we had our quarterly staff meeting, all staff meeting and celebrated awards on our quarterly awards, and just wanted to highlight these individuals for some of the great work that they did. We have everything from individuals who stepped out the garden team members who are just going above and beyond to make sure that I just wanted to recognize our staff members and congratulate them again for their good works. It's always, we always like to center our work and focus on building for the public, and we do that together, safe and more, and really in particular in today's world, building together is important, and working together and at the highway. First, I wanted, in the spirit of build together, photos that are in Traffic Operations Center. You can see that half the yard buildings are really at this point done. We're working on still getting the fencing and other things in place there, but we'll be continuing the paving of the front section and getting that in place. Hopefully before the snow flies, and then over the winter to get that building complete. So good progress is being made there. It's fun to see the building coming together and looking exactly like the pictures and what we proposed it to look. On the bottom, you see some updated photos of the Meeker building. We've been making a lot of progress, good construction. Everything from done some painting in the building. We've done removed some of the old furniture that's not going to be useful. We've removed ceiling tiles and getting things ready for the actual construction to occur. We have lots of different activities that are occurring there. Also, in the spirit of building together, we recognize the the effort that the commission is going to and sponsoring these facilities occurring. And so staff recognizes that. And as we go through this process, I've asked the team, and the team is working carefully to look over our budget and see, as we deal with the cost of these projects, we are not experts in vertical construction. And so there's some things that, as costs come in, surprise us a little bit. We are reviewing the budget, but we are looking within our operational budget for ways that we can help fund any of those increased costs. So it is our commitment that we will not impact our capital. Any costs for these buildings will come out of reservations or from savings in our operational costs that we're working on. But just want to demonstrate our commitment to you as we're looking and starting the next budget process and preparing for the first adjustments, that we are looking very closely at this and making sure that we can accommodate and accomplish the work that you've asked us to do. I can definitely assure you that nothing is gold-plated in these efforts. These are just standard construction costs that we're dealing with, and staff really wants to support the effort and do what sacrifices we can from an operational perspective to help make it happen. Now I'm going to turn some time over to Mr. Tom Audit to present to you our winter operations. As he's coming up, we have a video to kick off this fun time of year.
Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the Commission. For the record, Tom Audit, Deputy Director, Operations. I'm going to be giving you a quick presentation on our winter ops preparations. Our mission for winter operations, as stated there, is to facilitate the safest possible travel conditions for the public, utilizing all available tools and resources. What we've got prepared this year are 37 dump trucks with sanding and mag chloride units and plows, 7 dump trucks with just plows, 6 pickups with salt spreading units and plows, 15 various anti-icing agents, our 5 graders and 3 loaders. So 73 total units with 50 total plows, 176 team members and contractors on call. We do not want to be found unprepared. Our material storage capacity, as you can see, is fairly big this year with 335,000 gallons of magnesium chloride that we're able to store at our 3 different locations. Our sand salt mix of 7,500 tons and our rock salt mix of 9,500 tons. Our treatment priorities are as follows. As always for us, arterials, collectors, major intersections, overpasses, bridges, emergency services, hospitals, fire stations, railroad crossings, school crossings, and streets with grades of over 6% are our #1 priority. Priority 2 would be our school bus routes for safe going to and coming home from school for our little ones. And then lastly, if we can get all of those first 2 done, then we would be looking at residential streets, including cul-de-sacs throughout the county. We've got a robust and very good communications team. Communication has already been coming out. We've got our Neighborhoods in the Know event that's coming up tomorrow. There have been flyers sent to various HOAs. Businesses have gotten many pieces as well as our contribution, our relationship with media organizations. We're making sure that everyone is aware of what's going on and how we're best going to accomplish what we need to this winter. We want to make sure that people understand, and despite what way they may be looking at us, what there's going to be. So there's a lot of digital media. Our Name a Plow event was very popular and got a whole bunch of attention, and things were going very well. We're also this year One new item is a joint ACHD ITD map that'll show the differences between our roads and their roads. Thank you.
Commissioner Goldthorpe, that was Tom's first presentation. I just want to make sure that you
Uh-oh.
are aware of that, so.
Dropping the ball already.
Thank you. As you can see, the team is well prepared for this year's snow season. If there's one thing we do well, we want to make sure that addressing the snow and making sure people are safe driving around during the winter is done well. Recently,
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Tom, you did such a great job. I was so enthralled, I forgot to give you a score. How's that for a save?
Good job, good job.
there will be time in the future. In the spirit of Build More, we recently partnered with the city of Nampa, Idaho Transportation Department, the legislature, Compass, the different highway districts in Canyon County for the groundbreaking of the Ustick Road Corridor from Phyllis Canal to Owyhee Storm. Commissioner McKinney was out there with us as well. It was an exciting time to be able, there was a lot of dirt thrown. We took a lot of pictures, but it's exciting to have that project moving forward. We also wanted to share with you today an exciting thing one of our team members was able to bring back from a training. As you're well aware, the commission has directed the installation of leading pedestrian intervals at all intersections throughout the signalized intersections throughout the county. Well, the team has brought forward an idea that will help that project be able to move forward and at certain intersections faster, but also be able to keep the traffic flowing without having the same impacts that could be caused by the leading pedestrian interval. And we have a brief video to introduce this to you today. So, Madam President, Commissioners, the leading through interval it's an idea that we're going to be testing out first at the Ustick and Meridian intersection to see how it works. We haven't used this in the county at all, but what it does is it provides that leading pedestrian interval to be implemented, but also keeps the through movements, as you saw, continuing. And we think that this is a great way to get the project moving forward. Now, one of the things that's through this process, our commitment still to implement the accessibility improvements at all intersections is still there. That is the case. But one of the things with the original, with an LPI that requires the APS to also be installed is that there needs to be that audible cue that traffic is moving. Well, by allowing that through traffic to go, that audible cue is there. And so it allows us to be able to move forward with this kind of implementation a little bit faster and then work on those ADA improvements still to come as we improve those intersections. Really, what we're talking about are timing and minor modifications at the intersection that will allow the LPI to occur a little bit sooner while keeping traffic flowing. So it's an interesting idea, and I think that it helps accelerate the initiative that you all have given us. It only can be implemented at places where there is a dedicated right turn lane. You can't do it at at all intersections, but it is an opportunity that would allow us to accelerate some of that implementation throughout the county.
Commissioner Goldthorpe?
Yes, thank you. Ryan, what about the cost? Is it going to change up or down with this additional feature?
Well, Madam President, Commissioners, ultimately, the majority of the cost that when we're talking about LPI was going to be in the reconfiguring of the intersection to install the ADA improvements. Our commitment is still there that we have to do those over time. But we can implement this process a little bit sooner because it doesn't require those same infrastructure changes just to make implement this system. So
The reason I ask that is that the public unfortunately doesn't understand what you just said about ADA infrastructure improvements being necessary for the LPI. What they thought was just that it was a software upgrade. And so they, have kind of poked us a few hundred times about the costs. And so this through indicator is mostly a software upgrade, correct?
yeah, with the Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, that is correct. It's primarily a software update with some adjustment. There will be some adjustment, and we have to make sure that there's a four-headed signal there so that the flashing yellow can be there and be part of the process. So some minor infrastructure change, but only on the signal heads.
Madam President?
Ryan, I'd like you to come back to us and let us know how it works though after you guys install it. But Commissioner McKinney?
So, yes, thank you, Director. So essentially what you're saying is that we can go ahead and institute this LTI switch at intersections before the ADA improvements are made. Is that correct?
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, that's part of why we're piloting it right now. We want to make sure that we're looking at it and ensuring that we can we're meeting all the federal requirements that for what triggers an ADA improvement. But we do believe that that is the case, that we can move ahead and install this with the existing infrastructure that's in place, and then over time make the ADA improvements as we can. It's not a change to our commitment to ADA. That's absolutely not true, but we are able to get the safety improvements in place and then make the ADA improvements over time.
Well, because that harks back to an earlier question I had when we first considered the leading pedestrian indicator or leading pedestrian interval change. And I'm curious to know, the question in my mind is, does making the LPI change, does it truly trigger ADA requirements, or could it not be done by itself? And I'm not sure that we ever got that official analysis. Have we had a legal opinion about confirming that, yes, indeed, we are actually are obligated to do all the ADA upgrades simply to make some timing changes in an intersection? Has that, because I don't recall that we ever got a full or complete answer on that question.
Yes, thank you, Madam President, Commissioner McKinney. Our legal team has reviewed that and has indicated that we do need to make those improvements.
So,
In working with the visually impaired community, what we understand is they need that audible cue to say go. And without all traffic or without any traffic moving, there's no audible cue to say go. And so it disadvantages those with visual disabilities who don't know that it's okay, that it's their time to start moving through the intersection. And so that's where it triggers the ADA requirements. In this case, with the leading through interval, there is the movement of vehicles in that direction, which gives that audible cue that they can begin crossing at that earlier time when the leading pedestrian interval signal changes.
Okay, so I'm assuming we've got a written opinion from our general counsel's office on that question, because that's something I'd like to see.
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, I don't know that we have a written opinion, but we can ask them to prepare one.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Ryan. Great update.
There you go. Commissioners, just finalizing what's up and coming. We do have this Thursday, the Neighborhoods in the Know, where the neighborhoods will be invited. They're going to get a brief on our winter operations as well as on the speed management policy update. So we're going to use that meeting to help inform the neighborhoods on that change and get feedback there, as well as our advisory committees. And then we will be, we are working on, we have a work session as mentioned next week, talking about preventative maintenance as was the question, as well as a pilot project with the use of micro trenching for the installation of fiber. So just share with you some of those conversations that are ongoing.
Ryan, can you remind us, Miss Stacy, when is our meeting with the city of Boise? Because I think that's missing off this timeline. Is it the 18th?
I think it's, yeah, it's up.
Monday.
It's the 18th
It's,
at
yeah.
1, I think.
The 18th at 1.
So,
Thank you. Thank you for the reminder there. Okay, thank you, Commission.
oh yeah, is it here or is it City Hall? You know?
We haven't established that yet.
Okay. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Great. Thank you,
you.
Ryan. All right, we'll be at ease for about 4 minutes.
Yeah. I demand that someday. Okay, probably.
I didn't know if you wanted.
you.
I got your one just in case.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Alrighty, let's do it.
Can you turn on oh, there we go. All right, it's now 12 o'clock. I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. Thank you, everyone that's joining us online and in person. Please join us in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first order of business is to adopt the agenda.
So move.
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney,
I guess I would have to move that we,
Do that at the.
that's the consent agenda.
When we do the consent.
oh, okay. Then I'll wait.
Is there a second? Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next order of business is to adopt the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered routine and are action items unless otherwise noted. The consent agenda is enacted by one motion. There is no separate discussion on items on the consent agenda. If a commissioner or citizen would like, they may request any item be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. We do have a request to remove item number 3 and place it as number 1 on the regular agenda. Is there a motion?
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney,
I move that we remove item 3 from the consent agenda and place on the regular agenda and approve the consent agenda, all remaining items on the consent agenda.
Second.
moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, so the first item is formally item number 3, which is the impact fee deferral agreement for downtown YMCA. Miss Christie,
Hello.
not Megan.
That's right. Good afternoon, Madam President, Commissioners. So this is an impact fee deferral agreement for the new Y downtown on State Street. The city of Boise is not waiving impact fees for this, their own impact fees for this project because their policy specifically says that they'll waive impact fees for affordable housing units. As we've discussed in the past, our policy, well, we don't have a policy that addresses deferral agreements. With nonprofits, they're eking out every penny that they can, and not having to finance an impact fee is helpful to them. Our policy for impact fees specifically says that regardless of a nonprofit use, we can't waive an impact fee unless it's paid by the general fund. And so this is one way that we can help our nonprofit community in deferring these impact fees until they get to the point of occupancy. So we do require that the land use agency sign this 3-party agreement, which the city of Boise has done. And that just indicates that they will withhold any occupancy requests until the impact fee has been paid. So far, we're batting 1,000 and we've never had an issue come up with one of these deferral agreements. So I'm happy to stand for questions. We have a representative from the Y here if necessary.
Thank you, Christie. Commissioner McKinney.
Yes, thank you, Christie. So my big concern here is that, yeah, we don't have a policy. We don't have a set of criteria for determining when we do and when we don't agree to deferral. I mean, we had one not too long ago where the majority of the commission voted to defer impact fees for a hotel, a Marriott hotel in downtown Boise, which to me doesn't make any sense. And so it's hard for me to agree to impact fee deferrals when it's just ad hoc, when we don't have a policy, we're just doing whatever we feel like at any given time. I think that's an unwise way to do things. And in this case, the downtown YMCA, one of the challenges here is that we have this pending project to reconstruct State Street through this area. And one of the big drivers for the proposed changes to the earlier plans on State Street in this area was the YMCA's, big plans for expansion, and all of the presumptive pedestrian impacts and so on that would bring. And then we learned just a few weeks ago that, oh, sorry, we're not going to do that. YMCA has changed their plans. And so now the scope of their plans has dramatically changed and diminished in size compared to what it was. And so a large part of the motivation or reasons that were given for changing our design of State Street in this area are now, largely gone. So we've kind of got, and in some respects, I wonder, some people wonder if there's a little bit of kind of a bait and switch here, that YMCA knew they weren't going to do this big thing back when the changes were proposed, and yet didn't really say anything when the changes were being considered, and only now does this come to light. I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but it kind of looks that way and makes you wonder. In any case, those are two reasons why I'm concerned about this impact fee deferral agreement. In addition to the fact that improvements are going to be made right there on their frontage, and this is a pretty good chunk of money to set aside when we're making huge investments right there in front of their facilities right there. So those are my concerns, and I don't know if you can address those, or if the YMCA wants to address any of those. I would welcome that. Likewise, anything from our staff about when we might have a neutral analytical basis for deciding when to grant impact fee deferrals and when not to. Because without that, it's hard for me to keep approving these one after another. That's, without any stable criteria for doing it, that's my biggest concern.
There was just a lot of speculation and not a
Madam-
specific question, but Commissioner Hanson?
Yeah, Madam President, I'd like to hear from the why, since Commissioner McKinney's description's the only one on the record. I'd actually like to hear some factual information from the why. Thank you.
Welcome, Catherine.
So Commissioners, Madam President, Commissioners, thanks for having me. I'm Catherine Hunter, Director of Real Estate Development and Construction for the Treasure Valley Family YMCA, and Project Manager for this great catalytic project. My first time presenting like this, so I apologize if my voice is shaky.
Catherine, can I get a quick address just for the record, and it could be the whys. That's fine. Just an address.
We'll follow up.
805 West Franklin Street, Boise, 83702. Thank you. Commissioner McKinney, thank you so much for your questions and wondering about the scope of our project. I'm so happy you asked that question. We have been working on this project for 10 years, and I can tell you that our scope of our project has always remained a 109,000. It's gotten a little bit bigger to serve our community better, but we have always had a 109,000 square foot YMCA to serve our community in the best way possible. It's true that several years ago, when we started this project in a greater fashion, we anticipated working with our great developer team who has been by our side through this whole time, CCDC, who has been by our side the whole time. And yes, the scope of the greater project has changed, and the affordable housing, because of inflation and such, has changed. So that is true. But the YMCA has always committed to serving our community in the same location right across the street from our existing YMCA. And we are not performing a bait and switch as you suggested. I'm sorry that you think that. We have always had the same plan to serve our community in the best way that we have and always will.
Well, I'm curious, if I may, when the change in the scope of the project, when was it first known that change was going to happen?
The scope of the greater project you're suggesting?
Yes.
It has come about in the last few months, actually. When our developer team found out that inflation rates were not allowing them to build the affordable housing as they anticipated and the workforce housing. We still anticipate working with CCDC for a parking garage, which is needed for our YMCA members and also for that area of town, the 11th Street corridor and State Street area. So we anticipate having a parking garage there and our YMCA. But our developer team in just the last few months have realized that they are not able to construct the affordable and workforce housing as they anticipated.
So when you say in the last few months, can you be any more specific on that?
In the summertime, probably. I'm sorry, I don't have a specific month, but a few months ago.
Commissioner Hanson.
Madam President, yeah, thank you, Catherine. I appreciate it. I'm familiar with the why. And I know you're from the real estate division, so you may not be as up on all the details of the services that the Y provides. I'm familiar that they do provide lots of service, especially for low-income children, children with disabilities, people with disabilities, and that's why they're set up as a nonprofit and not a for-profit adventure. Could you tell me some of the people who were served by the Y and the ability to serve even more people with this expansion that's been in the works for 10 years?
Yes, thank you. We will have our second Blue Cross of Idaho Thrive Center, which serves our population of young children and young adults who are on the autism spectrum, neurodiverse. They will have the same services that we provide to them at our Tomlinson South Meridian YMCA to help them learn, grow, and thrive. Their families appreciate those services, and I believe that it's 1 in 4 families who attend the Thrive Center are helped with our financial assistance. We, as you know, loving the YMCA, we do not turn away anybody due to the inability to pay, and we find a way for anybody who wants to come to the Y to be able to do that. Another example I'd like to share is our healthy living programming that serves our Parkinson's and Alzheimer's patients and oncology recovery. We will have a dedicated room in the new downtown Y for our healthy living participants to come. They are being served currently in the building where I work, and it is a privilege and a joy to watch them come because they are being served and their Parkinson's disease is mitigated or put off a little bit because of their work that they have the opportunity to do at our Y. And this is at all of our Ys, not just in the building where I am, but they will be served at the downtown Y.
Thank you. I think that's important to know that people are alive today and are living and participating in the community because of the work that the Y does.
Yes, thank you. We're also a warming and a cooling shelter also for our
That's
homeless
right.
friends too every year. So yes, thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. Any other questions for Catherine? Or about this deferral for Christy? Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. All right, is there a motion?
Madam President,
Commissioner Gold?
I move to approve the impact fee deferral agreement for the downtown YMCA.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion?
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney?
let me just say, I wouldn't have, the Y is a great organization, and as a nonprofit organization, I ordinarily wouldn't have any difficulty approving this, but simply because of the fact that we do not have neutral criteria for deciding these questions, I can't vote for any more of them until we do have that. So that's why I'll vote against it.
Madam President,
Commissioner Hanson?
my preference actually is to waive the impact fee and to pay the 400 and some thousand from general funds, because these are folks who are not benefiting by where this money is going. And so it just shows the flaw in our impact fee system. But I didn't make that motion, so I'll support the motion to defer it. It's unfortunate that over $400,000 of monies are going to be imposed on this facility that'll have to be passed on and make this that much more costly for the very families that they're trying to serve.
Commissioner Goldthorpe?
Yes, only one comment, and doesn't have to do with whether or not we should defer it, but whether or not we absolutely need to have a firm policy in place. The way we do these impact fee deferrals or waivers, all these things are very much case specific. So that if and when we develop a policy for this, all it's going to have in it is a bunch of words that say I mean, may, not shall. And so, this is a may issue. And to have a firm policy that just has a bunch of words may in them doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. We've worked out really well for the last 10 years that I've sat here with the very few impact fee deferrals and or waivers that we've done in 10 years that, that is not a meaningful thing to me. But I will go ahead and support this particular motion. And I was on the record when we discussed the State Street project of being very disappointed with every one of the participants within the city of Boise who changed their position from one design to the other. That, I try and keep telling myself when I look in the mirror to compartmentalize everything that comes before us in this agency, in these meetings, and this I have done. And that's why, even in lieu of that disappointment, I'm willing to support this deferral.
Catherine, I just want to say thank you so much for your work and the WISE work. You guys are an amazing organization, despite what some cold or hollow accusations you may have heard today on the dais. It's not a reflection of the whole commission. And we're so appreciative of you and your work, and are excited to see what you guys built, and excited to be a supportive partner in realizing how the transportation system can support the building and the patrons that are going to be occupying the Y. So with that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Moving on to item number 2. It's the authorization and order of condemnation for Fairview Avenue and Locust Grove Road, ACC parcel number 320012, parcel 17. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to go ahead and open that public hearing. Welcome, Mr. Serdar.
Thank you, Madam President, Commissioners. For the record, if I need to get a little closer there. David Serdar, right-of-way supervisor for Ada County Highway District. As was said, this is a public hearing and condemnation briefing for a property on Fairview Avenue and Locust Grove project. This project is part of ACHD's adopted 2025 and 2029 integrated 5-year work plan. This parcel is anticipated to be our last condemnation of a 2-year right-of-way acquisition project that you've seen before you before. Once right-of-way is completed, this will be a shelf-ready project. The property is located on the north side of Fairview Avenue and just west of Locust Grove. It is commonly referred to, because it's the tenant is the Crunch Fitness property. That's where Crunch Fitness is. This is kind of a close-up view of the property. The blue is the temporary construction easement, and the orange is the right-of-way fee acquisition. ACHD does own, there's a little piece of parking here just to the east, and I don't know if you can hit that with the mouse. Just a little bit east, well, a little farther.
It's west.
That's west. So right there. Oh, you were right there. No, one back.
Oh, goodness. Maybe you should just
Like
get the mouse, Dave.
whack-a-mole.
Only Boy Scouts in this.
Sorry about that. That piece right there, ACHD is the current owner of. We bought that as an opportunity by a couple of years ago in anticipation of potential parking issues on this project. So The property size before the acquisition is 1.620 acres. The free requirement is 1.45 acres, and the temporary construction easement is 0.181 acres. After the acquisition, the property will be 1.75 acres in size. Zoning at this property is general retail and commercial. ACHD right-of-way team has been negotiating on this parcel since June of 2023. The biggest issue that has been an impact is the parking on site and concern for the tenants and their parking. ACHD group has discussed a trade with the property owner for the adjacent property ACHD owns to the east. One thing that has hampered these negotiations is that the owner of the property that owns the Crunch Fitness property was involved in a merger. So their focus has been on the merger and not so much this, it's a bigger national company and focused on that merger. And this happened during the middle of negotiations. Right Away did send a final 10-day letter and received confirmation that it was received by the owner. Right, as always, Right Away and our legal team will continue to negotiate throughout this condemnation process. It is staff recommendation that we declare the acquisition area necessary for the project as right of way and public use, authorize staff to proceed with the condemnation action, and execute an order of condemnation for the acquisition area. I will remain standing for any questions the commission has.
Thanks, Dave. Commissioner Goldthorpe?
Yes, I'm wondering how urgent, considering the length of time before we start construction or going out to bid or anything else, I'm wondering about how urgent the need is to complete this right now and have this project shovel ready when we're not going to do anything with the ground until what, 2029? There we come.
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, Diane Bevins, Deputy Director of Projects for the record. As Dave mentioned, we've been in right-of-way for 2 years on this project, and budget-wise, staff-wise, workload-wise, we need to wrap it up. We've been in negotiations for 18 months. Usually more time doesn't work in these types of situations. We need the condemnation action to wrap up this parcel, and then we, as he mentioned, we will have a shelf-ready project. The right-of-way is done, and then we can move on to other projects.
Do we have any anticipation that we might be able to get some financial help to build this project when it actually comes to fruition, or is this going to be strictly a local project?
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, I'm not sure, it is connected to State Highway 55, so there's potential there, but this is impact fee eligible as not just from general funds, but right now we don't have plans for additional funding.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Serdar? Okay, is the property owner in attendance? Okay, is there anyone, a member of the public that would like to testify on this item? All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Commissioners, Commissioner
Yes.
Goldthorpe.
I'd like to make a motion, and that is to approve the authorization and order of condemnation for the Fairview Avenue Locust Grove project number 320012, parcel 17.
Second,
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
if I may, let me add just one comment,
Commissioner
kind of
McKinney.
in response to Commissioner Goldthorpe's comments. I think delaying the purchase of real property almost always makes it cost more. So in the interest of taking care of the public's funds in this case, it would be, I think, unwise to delay and would be worth going forward right now.
Commissioner Hanson?
Just that I'll be voting no. Creating induced demand is not a public necessity. And this project simply expands to create an induced demand. I'd also like to point out, it's unfortunate the representative from the Y is gone because it's always important to know where the money goes when impact fees are assessed and the deferred impact fees when they're eventually paid. This is one of the things they'll be paying for, those families at the Y.
Any other discussion? Wait, we did make a motion, is that correct? Yeah, we did. Moved and seconded, thank you. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Diane. All right, so we're gonna move on to public communications. Is there any member of the public that would like to address the commission at this time? Okay, well, the meeting is adjourned. We're gonna roll into our post-commission agenda. We have 2 work sessions and an executive session. So our first work session is the Livable Streets Performance Measures Audit and Update. Presentation by staff. Welcome, Ms. Meg McCarthy. It's great to see you.
Good afternoon, Madam President and Commissioners. My name is Meg McCarthy. I am the Bicyclist and Pedestrian Program Coordinator here at ACHD, and I am here to share some more information on our update to the Livable Streets Performance Measures ahead of their adoption, which is going to be next month. I've been working closely with our consultant, Mac Derzayich, my supervisor, Dave Rader, and our broader project team. Working with the team at Alta has been so helpful. They're one of the leading planning organizations for vulnerable road users, and they also assisted in developing the measures in 2021. We were able to implement the measures when they were adopted in 2021, and that was super helpful. I'm waiting to update this document because we got a lot of feedback from the ACEC group, and our staff is also very knowledgeable. But from both of those groups, their knowledge of applying the measures, and especially from an outside perspective, was integral when we began to identify what tweaks were required. And I mentioned how important Mac is to this work, and he is on the line virtually in Salt Lake City on Zoom if any technical questions come up. So the measures were adopted at the end of the summer in 2021, and since their adoption, we've used the measures in all aspects of the work that we do at ACHD, from scoping, planning, design, and development. The measures have been a significant help to us as staff, our consultants and advocates, and the public when we're explaining the why behind we do things. In April, Mac and I presented to you all to kick off this work. And since then, we've had multiple meetings with the ACHD project team and our subcommittees. They've been really helpful for gathering feedback for the ACHD project team because we have so many experts from different parts of the work that we do. And the subcommittee has been great because we're making sure that we're in alignment with the views of our advocates, and they've been a really excellent gut check for us. From everyone, we've heard that the measures are working as intended, but they needed to be a little bit more simple and provide some additional room for flexibility, which were kind of our guiding principles when we look to make changes. So many of the tables have changed, but the changes aren't super significant. Instead, they're more tweaks that are focused on improving the flexibility of the tables and streamlining the document. The most significant change to the bike segment tables is that we're now taking the volume of traffic into consideration. We also were able to add some additional tools to our arsenal by identifying more adjustment factors that are unique to every single facility. We also have an exciting change, which is our protected facilities, like our multi-use pathways and our protected bike facilities are now in separate tables. Previously, we have tables for them. So this is one of those new tables. This is the multi-use, measuring it based and the speed. So through the table and the various adjustments ways with reduced buffers, which can help us maintain landscaping impacts. The adjustment factors also are helpful in scoring pathways that have been built through development, since some might have crash-worthy barriers, others might be for the pathways. This is Locust Grove, which was a recent construction. 40 miles an hour. So that puts us and underneath 40 miles per hour. On our separated bike lane table, you can see that the amount of lanes and speed are still considered. They've always been in the previous ones also, but we're now taking volumes of traffic into account. In addition to the new, in addition to the blue notes section, we're defining exactly what needs to be to make a separated bike lane. So again, we can run through this LTS measurement here. This is 11th Street. It's taken in August, which is why it looks, kind of apocalyptic. But we have 2 travel lanes, less than 7,000 ADT, and a 20 mile per hour speed limit. So that also puts us at LTS 1. The tables for the pedestrians required a little bit more work than the bike facility tables. As we worked through this process, we realized that we were doubling up on our efforts to measure and provide technical information and guidance. This is because we have an ADA transition plan, and that identifies width and compliance of sidewalks throughout the county. Width is still playing a part in measuring the level of traffic stress, but we're now applying it as an adjustment factor. Another issue with the 2021 adopted measures was we were unable to achieve an LTS1 on a lot of our arterial roadways because of higher speeds and higher volumes. But we now have some additional flexibility with the tables, and so we are able to get that LTS1 based again on the buffer. And another helpful thing that's occurred is that we're defining things better. So we're providing specific definitions for low speed, low volumes, vertical elements. And this is going to increase the efficiency of our consultants when they're running LTS. And most importantly, it gives me less emails to respond to. So for this section, this is one of the tables for our pedestrian tables. And simplifying our sidewalk measurements is probably the work that I'm most proud of as part of this audit. Previously, we would have to flip between 3 pages and 4 tables and take the lowest score to determine the PLTS. Now we have 1 page and 2 tables. We're looking at the sidewalk presence and the sidewalk buffer. The notes section, again, helps provide guidance for measuring the buffer, how we evaluate sidewalks if there's a segment that doesn't have sidewalk, and what to do when we have extruded curbs. As I mentioned before, with our adjustment factors, we can factor in the other elements that contribute to feeling comfortable on pedestrian facilities. So this is a street in West Boise. It's Edna Street. And we have a complete sidewalk on one side of the street. It's almost both. There's only like two houses, I think, that don't have sidewalk. But for the purpose of this, we have sidewalk on one side. The posted speed on this section is 20 miles an hour. And we have parking on both sides, which creates an 8-foot buffer. So that puts this section also as an LTS1. Measuring level of traffic stress at intersections is still a relatively new practice. So we've continued to use FHW guidance and included their recommendations for safety countermeasures at signalized and unsignalized intersections. For vulnerable road users, Intersections are the most dangerous part of their journeys, and we wanted to have tables that would reflect the movements that people walking, biking, and rolling make. So we now have a new table that scores cyclists taking left turns and provides more definitive language for facilities as they approach and move through intersections. For unsignalized locations, the volume of traffic is considered, as that's going to create when you can find a gap in traffic to cross. And I think most importantly for our intersection tables, we only had between the unsignalized and signalized tables for pedestrians and cyclists, we only had identified 7 adjustment factors. And now we've nearly tripled that number to 17. And some of those factors include bike signals, permissive and protected signal phasing, like things that you heard about today with the leading through interval, constructing radiuses to reduce turning speed, crosswalks, turn boxes, and standard bike box. List of our intersection tables, and this is what we would use for pedestrians. Our roundabout tables also gave us a lot of trouble previously because the worst that they would score was an LTS 2 or 3, and we knew that was just not correct from our own experiences and from feedback of our advocates. We also did not have anything in our measures to encourage constructing bike ramps at locations where an on-street bike lane runs into a roundabout. Now our tables are reflecting ADT. They always did, but these are in line with FHWA, which has expanded further and provided additional guidance since the measures were adopted in 2021. And this top table is what we use for our pedestrians and also what we're using now if a cyclist does have that bike ramp. So this was a crash course in identifying LTS. I don't suggest that any of you try to do this. That's what I'm here for. But for our next steps, we're providing the draft measures on our Engage ACHD page, and our advisory committees have been notified to review, and the public can also review and provide comments. It was really important to us that we retain the original documents look and feel and only made some tweaks, and I think we have achieved that. So in December, this item will return for adoption. And after that, our team will continue to work on the design guidelines, which is another exciting aspect of this work. And that will include details about constructing protected corners and intersections, how to provide more comfortable facilities when we transition between an on-street facility to an off-street or behind the curb facility, offset intersections, and further information about how we can continue to design facilities that are meeting our goals of LTS 1 or 2. So with that, I'm happy to stand for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Meg. Yeah, and I see Mac. It's nice to see you. Thanks for your work, and thanks to all the folks that helped you along the way. I really was impressed by the robustness of your group. Meg, do you mind just kind of speaking to the various resources or other municipalities or transportation authorities that you looked to for inspiration and compared us to and helped guide this?
Yeah. Mac, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. Can you all hear me?
You're a little quiet on our end, but this is us, I think. We'll turn up the volume. Hold on, Mac. Okay,
And
go ahead.
Can you just repeat the question? Sorry, I want to make sure I understood it.
Mac, I was wondering what's, either states, other highways or municipalities you lended a lot of the research from and guiding these improvements, if at all.
Yeah, so because a lot of this, there's not a whole lot of agencies like ACHD across the country, as you know, especially those that are taking on developing performance measures like this countywide. And so there isn't a whole lot of precedent in terms of agencies like ACHD, but we leaned heavily on the Federal Highway Administration, which is FHWA, as well as AASHTO, both seen as kind of leading agencies in developing best practices for bikeway and pedestrian design guidance and levels of comfort measures. So a lot of the thresholds you see in the tables for speeds and volumes were gleaned from guidance published by FHWA, which is usually not published unless researched pretty robustly and can be traced to sources cited and case studies. But FHWA and AASHTO are the two primary kind of sources we've been looking at.
Thanks, Meg. Other questions for Meg? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to our second work session. It's the Warm Springs Avenue, Avenue C to Windsong Drive concept update. I know a lot of folks have been waiting for this, so thanks Edinson for presenting to us today.
Thank you, Madam President, Commission. My name is Edinson Bautista, ACHD Senior Transportation Planner. We're here today to give an update on the Warm Spring Avenue concept from Avenue C to Windsong Drive. In today's meeting, we have our consultant for this project, HDR, with Pearson Dewitt, here present in attendance for any technical questions that I might not be able to answer. This is an information briefing only, so no decision is required from the Commission at this time. As part of this presentation, we'll go over a little bit on the progress report, give the Commission a status of the project, provide a summary of the second public outreach, go over the and present the refined alternative for this concept, as well as next steps in the project. As you remember, Commission, back in September 2023, and also in this year in March 2024, staff presented an updates to the Commission with the finding of existing condition, summary of the public engagement number 1, the 3 concept we developed for the public outreach number 2, as well as some preliminary data that we collected through the second PIM. Since then, staff and the consultant have worked diligently to review the comments received from the community and refine the refined alternative. This effort is in preparation for the 3rd public outreach. In this slide, we presented, just as a reminder, the concepts developed for that public outreach number 3. During that process, we received, that happened during January 30 to February 16, we received over 978 visitors on the website, with 118 surveys submitted. In addition, we conducted an in-person meeting with 68 members of the public participating in this event. From that, we received 36 comments, and overall 22 emails were received during this period. After reviewing and compiling the public comments, Concept 2 was identified as a preferred alternative by the public. While during the PIM number 2, the results is favored Concept 2, staff wanted to recognize that we received significant number of comments and feedback from both adjacent neighbors and many users of the corridor, expressing concern over the raised or separated bicycle facility that we presented as part of Concept 2. The themes are summarized in this slide. And similarly, we received feedback on the intersection of Warm Springs and Walnut, where several adjacents around the resident expressed concern and opposition towards the proposal of a signal at this intersection. In this slide, I also present some of those concerns that were raised to staff from the comments. The project team and the consultant evaluated all the comments and reviewed Concept 2 to address many of these concerns. During this evaluation, staff and the consultant identify a few areas that would require additional consideration, including this includes the overall changes to many of the segments that are adjacent to the historical designation areas, potential impacts to the existing landscape, and the overall visibility of the implementation. Considering these factors, staff felt the need to reassess the current approach leading towards the third public outreach to identify a more practical approach to implement the project. This reassessment led us to the consideration of the breakdown of the recommended improvements into bundled projects. Each bundle project would follow the theme consistent with the feedback received in both public outreach. Given that this is a new approach, staff sought to engage with key stakeholders to ensure that they will continue to be informed about the current approach, receive feedback on the approach as well as on the bundles, and to verify the specific areas of interest and focus of the community. These meetings took place during August with the East End Neighborhood Association and on September with the Warm Spring Historic District and the City of Boise. While the stakeholders generally agree with the staff recommendation and the focus areas identified, we received feedback on the recommended improvement to some of the specific location, which were reviewed and addressed ahead of the third public engagement. In the next couple slides, we will go over each of these bundles. So for bundle A, we're starting with Avenue C to Costin Street with enhanced intersection improvements. We heard significant interest from the community to address crossing opportunities between these two intersections, Avenue C and Costin, as well as issues with vehicles passing on the right, taking over the bike lane and on the parking space, and the visibility issues created by parking near the intersections. There are a couple of locations highlighted as part of the public involvement. This included Stroud Avenue, Walnut Street, and Costin Street for this specific bundle. For Stroud Avenue, we're proposing raising the intersection and enhancing the crossing with bulb outs and rectangular rapid flashing beacons. For Costin Street, we're proposing the installation of a marked crossing with RFBs and bike push button at this. This Warm Spring Costin is key since it also connects to the Bannock Street Bikeway, which runs parallel to this segment of between Avenue C and Costin. Finally, for Walnut, we have two alternatives that staff plans to propose moving forward, but staff wants to highlight that we heard from the community also interest on the Walnut Street between Warm Springs and Lewis Street. And as part of next steps, we're looking to evaluate, as part of the design, we're looking to evaluate bicycle improvements at this segment to support the bicycle community traveling uphill. Now talking a little bit more about the intersection of Warm Spring and Walnut. In this intersection, we receive a lot of attention during the second public outreach. Many adjacent residents opposed the proposal of the signal, but at the same time, many of the survey responded selected the option of a signal at this location. Based on that, in the third PIM, staff plans to propose to reduce the number of alternatives to just two. One being the raised intersection with rectangular rapid flashing beacon, and similar to what we're proposing for Strand Avenue. And the second being the traffic signal. Our goal is to ensure that the community can select one or the other and have a clear preferred option as part of that preferred alternative that would come in front of the commission for a future decision. The cost estimate for the improvement between Avenue C and Costin range between $2 and $2.3 million. Now going over Bundle B, which is the connection to a low-stress bikeway. As mentioned earlier, the Bannock Street runs parallel to Warm Spring from Bruce Avenue to Costin Street, and it connects to this section of Warm Spring until it reaches the Greenbelt access at Margaret Street. As the ACC continues to build out the low-stress network and consistent with the adopted Bannock Street Bikeway, staff proposals would meet the goals and objectives established for the low-stress network. This includes achieving the NLTS 1. Considering this, staff is proposing the installation of a multi-use pathway on the north side of the corridor, as well as crossing improvements at, as mentioned before, Costin Street and Mobley Drive, which serve as a transition point for both cyclists that are traveling both on street and off street on this corridor. The cost estimate for the improvement between Costin Street and Mobley Drive is $500,000. Another area of interest by the community is the area surrounding the Adams Elementary Adams Elementary. This is from Martin Drive to Old Penitentiary. There was a combination of different type of concern. This included traffic issues during pickup and drop off that was created by the existing traffic pedestrian signal, long waiting times coming from the cross streets, the lack of crossing opportunity near the market and the Greenbelt access. Staff met with the school district and the principal of the Adams Elementary to discuss many of these issues and possible solutions. One of the solutions including the relocation of the traffic pedestrian signal to either Martin or Homestead. After further deliberation with the school and the school district, there was a high emphasis and the desire to continue to see the crossing at the current location. Since it is already an enhanced crossing and crossing guard is already assigned at this location. After further evaluation, staff overall agrees with the continued prioritization of the school kids' safety crossing at this location. Considering that any relocation of the crossing will potentially discourage kids to take the safest path to and from school. Nevertheless, while this is the case, staff continue to propose improvement that would help the crossing at both Homestead and Mobley Drive. Staff aim to reduce the crossing distance at both of these locations by proposing and recommending bulb outs in all corners, as well as marked crossing to create more awareness of pedestrian and bicycle utilization outside those school hours. In addition to crossing improvements, staff is proposing the installation of multi-use pathway that on both sides of the road that will connect to the Greenbelt access both at Martin Street and Old Penitentiary. From Bundle A to Bundle C, we will continue to retain the on-stream parking on both sides of the street. The cost estimate for these improvements between Martin Drive to Old Penitentiary is approximately $2 million. For Bundle D, from the start, we received overwhelming amount of comments from the community with an interest of ACHD to consider a roundabout at the Warm Spring Avenue in Old Penitentiary. After evaluating this location, staff agreed with the comments received and is proposing a single lane roundabout with rectangular rapid flashing beacons on all four legs. The cost estimate for this improvement is approximately $2 million. Finally, we reach Old Penitentiary to Windsong, which is our last bundle for this project. At the very beginning of the process, we didn't receive a lot of comments regarding this segment. Overall, most of the concerns were focused on the area near the Greenbelt access at the Warm Spring Golf Course. But after the second public outreach, many of the residents came together, as well as the city, and brought to staff attention the desire to see a sidewalk connection connection to connect the existing sidewalk to that Greenbelt access right in front of the Warm Spring Golf Course. After further review, there were significant topographic issues at this location that would not allow ACHD to accommodate sidewalk on both sides of the road. Therefore, staff proposes to continue evaluating a complete sidewalk connection or at least one side of the street, preferably on the south side of the road. This location will present some topographic issues which might require further analysis during design. ACHD will partner with the city of Boise to look at other opportunities to complete this sidewalk connection in front of the Warm Spring Golf Course. In addition to these features, staff proposes the installation of a rectangular flashing beacon at the Greenbelt access, consistent with the feedback received from the community, as well as the installation of bicycle facilities between Old Penitentiary and Windsong Drive. The Greenbelt will continue to be the primary low-stress route for this segment, providing an LTS1 for all users. The cost estimate for this improvement, it's approximately $2.7 million. As next steps, Commission, staff and the consultants will start preparing the material and tools for the January public outreach. our goal through that outreach is to receive feedback on the recommended improvements presented today, as well as on the bundles, the way we set up the bundles for this project. Another goal is to give the opportunity to the community to tell us what their priorities are, from the near term to the long term, and that will help us later on as we enter into the phase of programming and prioritizing through the integrated five-year work plan process. And on February, we would take the feedback received and compile and refine this alternative once more. And finally, on spring of 2025, we will be coming back in front of the commission for future adoption consideration. With this, staff concludes the presentation and stands for any questions.
Thanks, Edinson. Commissioner Hanson.
I just want to thank you. This is great work. It's been decades and decades in the works. A lot of the places where we spent tens of millions of dollars had crickets when these problems first became evident with the expansion of Barber Valley. But those have been prioritized. I really appreciate you breaking out into these bundles. And I hope that the movement to move some of them ahead much faster, especially those with the consensus, the roundabout, which there was strong support for a decade ago or more, but it got delayed and probably could have been built at a lot less cost. Seems to be the one that stands out there. I would also encourage the staff to apply the same standards to addressing topographic challenges on this segment as we did on the segment of Eagle Road, which turned out to be for 1 mile, nearly $20 million. This is over a 2-mile segment, significantly less. And of course, it's not requiring much right away, if any. And there's opportunities to finally put something in place. And hopefully the roundabout will be prioritized, move forward, and then that would change the character, improve the character. People recognize that they have the freedom to use this 2+ miles by all modes, and those freedoms, those people in that neighborhood have been waiting and waiting and waiting to have, even though they've been extremely generous in paying property taxes to make this happen. So thanks very much. I know that Commissioner-elect Nelson will be weighing in very soon on these, and I look forward to hearing her comments as well.
Any other questions for Edinson?
Madam
Okay.
President?
Oh, Commissioner McKinney.
Yeah, Edinson, just as we go through the extent of this project, it's apparent there's a fair amount of infrastructure throughout the project that's pretty recent. And one of the what concerns that, of course, this commission looks at is, are we redoing something that we redid just recently? For my benefit, it would be helpful going forward if we at least have some idea of, we've got a bulb out here that was put in such and such a year, and this project is proposing to tear it out and redo it in this way. I'd just like to be able to, weigh those factors. So in the future, next time we look at this, it'd be nice to know, what is it we're tearing out and redoing, and when was it built, just to kind of have an idea of, are we reinventing the wheel, or are we, are we doing a project that, or is all the aspects of the project really necessary, or, are we potentially wasting some of our resources?
Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, just to set the record straight, most of what we have on that is paint. And the only significant realignment was actually to realign the old penitentiary, which the state did in order to facilitate the alignment for a roundabout. So there's really nothing. There's been some sidewalks the developers have been required to build, but they're disconnected. That's why they've been waiting so long. There really isn't any new infrastructure, but we have put paint down a number of times, and there's some new geothermal pipes underneath that have been put in, probably put in 3 or 4 times since these issues were first raised. And no doubt probably will be dug up again and utilities addressed before we finally get around to addressing this. But no, most of this it's not been there.
Any other questions for Edson? Thank you. All right. Well, that's it for today, everyone. We'll see you next week. Yeah, I know.
One thing I will